Hello everyone, this is Pranesh from SNS Institution, and in this video we'll see about API and backend. When we use an application, we usually only see the screen in front of us. We click a button, enter some information and immediately receive a result. But have you ever wondered what happens behind the screen? Imagine you are sitting in the restaurant. You look at the menu and tell the waiter what you want. The waiter takes request to the kitchen. The kitchen prepares the food and the waiter brings it back to you. In this example, you are like the user. The menu and table are like the front end. The kitchen is like the back end, and the waiter acts as an API. An API, which means application programming interface, allow different parts of the software to communicate with each other. When you click login button on a website, the front end sends your login information to backend through an API. The backend receives the request, checks the information, and sends a response. If the details are correct, the response may say that the login was successful. If they are wrong, it may return an error message. The backend is responsible for much more than login. It can handle business rules, process payments, manage users, communicate with databases, send notifications, and perform many other tasks. For example, when you order food through an application, the front end sends you an order details to the backend. The backend checks the restaurants, calculates the price, creates the order, and stores informations. The the response is then sent back through the API and displayed on your screen. This communication happens within seconds. So whenever you use a modern application, remember that the screen you see is only a part of the system. API acts as a communication channel while the backend performs the important work behind the scenes. Understanding this relationship is one of the basic skills required to build modern applications. Let us understand how an API works with a simple example. Imagine you are using an online shopping applications and want to see the details of the particular product. You click a product and within a moment you see its names, price, image, stock status and description. The information did not magically appear on the screen. The front end sent a request to the backend through an API. The backend understood the request, found the required information on the databases, and returned the response. This communication usually follows a simple pattern. The client sends a request, the server processes that request, and the server sends a response back. The client can be a website, mobile application, or another software system. The server is a system that receives and processes the request. API provides a standard way for this communications system to communicate. You may have heard such terms as get, post, put, and delete. These are common HTTP methods used when working with API. Get is generally used to request information. Post is commonly used for getting new information or send information. Put is used to update existing information, and delete can be used to remove information. For example, a food delivery application may use get to show restaurant, post to create an order, put to update an order status, and delete to remove an item from the cart. The backend also check whether the user has permissions to perform an action. For example, normal customer should not be able to change the another customer's account details. This is why backend development is closely connected with the security and authentications. A good API should be clear, reliable, secure, and for easy for other developers to use. Once you understand this request and response process, many applications become easier to understand because you can clearly see how the front end, back end, and database communicate with each other. Now let us look at why API and backend systems are so important in the real world application. Imagine you are building a college management system. Students should be able to view attendance, teachers should be able to update marks, and administrators should be able to manage student information. Instead of allowing every screen to directly access the database, the application can use a backend with APIs. When a student opens the attendance page, the front end sends a request to the backend. The backend checks the student's identity, retrieves the correct attendance informations, and send only the required data back to the application. This provides better security and control. API also allows the backend to support different applications. For example, a company may have a website and a mobile application. Both can use the same backend APIs to access the products, accounts, orders, and the payments. This means developers do not have to build the same business logic again for every platform. Backend systems can also connect with the external service. A payment API can connect an application with a payment provider. A map API can provide location information. An email service can send message to users. This is why APIs are often described as bridges between the different software systems. When building a backend, developer must think about the security, performance, error handling, data validation, and reliability. A good backend should not simply return an answer; it should return and correct answer safely and efficiently. So, when you build your next applications, remember that frontend is what users see. The backend is where important processes are happening, and API connects these parts together. Once these three pieces work properly, you can create and powerful applications that communicate with users, databases, and other services smoothly.